based on multiple conversations that I've had, it does seem like the most likely scenario is that Kelsey Plum would move on from the Aces.
My basketball mind, though, is still having a hard time wrapping my head around Kelsey leaving and going to an org like the Valkyries.
What if I told you that Kelsey Plum, the heart and soul of the Las Vegas Aces, is on the verge of leaving? Not just leaving, but possibly heading to the Indiana Fever to join Caitlin Clark. Yes, you heard that right. The WNBA is buzzing with rumours and fans are going absolutely wild over the possibility of a Kelsey Plum for Kelsey Mitchell trade. But what's really going on here? Why would the Aces even consider letting go of their superstar? And what does this mean for the Fever's future? Let's break it all down. The Las Vegas Aces were supposed to be a dynasty, the team that would dominate the WNBA for years to come. With superstars like A'ja Wilson, Chelsea Gray, and Kelsey Plum, they had all the makings of a long-term powerhouse. But as we've seen in sports time and time again, success comes with complications. Now, that success is crumbling, and at the center of it all is Kelsey Plum. Reports have confirmed that Plum declined a contract extension with the Aces. Former GM Natalie Williams even stated that the team made an offer, but Plum turned it down.
You mentioned that she did not sign an extension, and former general manager Natalie Williams told me before she and the Aces parted ways that, Kelsey was offered an extension and declined.
This sent shockwaves through the league. Was it about money, a lack of respect, or something even deeper? Here's where things get messy. Many fans believe Plum is walking away, not just because of business, but because of drama behind the scenes. Let's talk about the elephant in the room, A'ja Wilson. Viewers have pointed out a growing rift between Wilson and Plum, with some going as far as claiming that A'ja Wilson's ego and leadership issues have been a major factor. There are even viral comments from fans stating that Wilson humiliated Plum by publicly bringing up white privilege in a way that fractured their relationship.
Paige reminds me a lot of you. Like, you say it's not really about me. And she knows how her privilege has gotten her to that point. And also, like, she's good at basketball, obviously. But, like, she understands her privilege. It's like, it's just her over the top in a sense. It reminds me a lot of you.
One comment summed it up best. Kelsey got tired of hearing that she was only recognized because she was white, not because of her athletic talents and game awareness. A'ja brought this all on herself. This tension has now created a culture shift in Vegas. The Aces, once seen as an unbreakable unit, are now full of doubt and division. Chelsea Gray is struggling with injuries. The depth of the team is weak, and suddenly their dominance is fading faster than anyone expected. But this goes deeper than just locker room drama. Plum was a major part of the Aces' offensive identity. Losing her doesn't just hurt morale, it fundamentally changes the way this team plays. The Plum effect on the Aces. Offensive engine. Plum is one of the league's best scorers and facilitators. Without her, the Aces' offense slows down significantly. Clutch factor, who steps up in big moments. Without Plum, the Aces might not have that same late-game edge. Wilson under pressure. With Plum gone, A'ja Wilson will have to carry even more of the load, which could affect her efficiency and overall effectiveness. So what does this mean for the future? If Plum is truly unhappy, where does she go? This is where things get crazy. The biggest rumor circulating right now is a blockbuster trade that would send Kelsey Plum to the Indiana Fever in exchange for Kelsey Mitchell. Now, let's break this down logically. Would this actually be a good move for either team? Why the Aces might want this trade? If Plum is truly leaving, the Aces cannot afford to lose her for nothing. Kelsey Mitchell is a proven scorer who outscored Plum last season. With Chelsea Gray aging and struggling with injuries, Mitchell could bring fresh energy to the Aces' backcourt. The Aces need a team player, and some believe that Mitchell fits that mold better than Plum. But here's the catch. Mitchell has not expressed any desire to leave Indiana. In fact, Fever fans are fiercely against this trade. Comments have been flooding in with messages like, Kelsey Mitchell and Caitlin Clark have the best backcourt in the WNBA. Keep them together at all costs. Do not trade Mitchell. She and Clark have unreal chemistry together. So why is this trade even a conversation? Well, it all comes down to one possibility: Kelsey Mitchell asking out. If Mitchell were to express even the slightest desire to leave Indiana, then suddenly this trade becomes a real possibility. So where does this leave us? There are 3 major outcomes that could shake up the WNBA. 1. Plum stays with the Aces. If the Aces can mend the tension and offer Plum a better contract, she could stay, but that feels increasingly unlikely given the ongoing drama. 2. The blockbuster trade happens. If the Fever decide that Plum and Clark make a better duo than Mitchell and Clark, they might actually pull the trigger on this trade. But would Fever fans ever forgive them for it? 3. A surprise team emerges. The Sparks, the Valkyries, another dark horse team could swoop in and land Plum in a shocking last-minute deal. No matter what happens, one thing is clear: Kelsey Plum's decision will change the WNBA forever. Think about this. If Plum joins Clark in Indiana, the Fever become instant title contenders. They go from an exciting young team to a serious championship threat overnight. Meanwhile, the Aces. They'd go from a dynasty in the making to a team struggling to stay in contention, and all because of one player's decision. But let's not forget the ripple effects this trade would have. WNBA attendance and viewership. Caitlin Clark has already skyrocketed WNBA ratings. Adding Plum to that equation, the Fever could become the most watched team in league history. Team dynamics. Aces fans might lose faith in their front office if they don't land a proper replacement. The Asia Wilson factor. If the Aces fail without Plum, will Wilson take the blame? Some fans are already turning on her, calling her leadership into question. This is the type of drama that keeps sports fans on the edge of their seats. And until Plum makes her move, the entire WNBA world is watching. Do you think the Aces can survive without Plum? Should the Fever pull the trigger on this trade? Let us know in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more WNBA breaking news. Because trust me, this saga is far from over.
Brianna Turner has signed with the Indiana Fever per the WNBA transition page. Some depth for the Fever front court. She played for, again, I believe she played for Chicago.
Angel Reese just took another major L. The Chicago Sky were desperate to land Brianna Turner in free agency. But at the last moment, she shocked everyone, choosing to sign with the Indiana Fever instead.
So, in a kind of a surprising turn of events, the Indiana Fever have made yet another move this offseason, and they have signed Bree Turner to the roster.
Reese's response? A cryptic, frustrated post that instantly went viral. Fans immediately jumped on it, questioning whether Reese is struggling to recruit talent to Chicago, while Caitlin Clark continues building the next WNBA powerhouse. But this story is bigger than just one free agency decision. It highlights the power shift happening in the WNBA, where Clark and the Fever are emerging as the new dominant force, while Reese is left wondering what went wrong. So why did Turner snub Chicago? And what does this mean for Angel Reese's future in the league? When Brianna Turner's free agency decision was first announced, it didn't seem like a big deal.
So in what might be the biggest surprise in all of free agency, the Indiana Fever have just signed Brianna Turner. Yeah, I think that this is a shock. I don't hate this. I actually don't hate this for the Fever.
Turner, a defensive specialist, was expected to attract interest from multiple teams, and Chicago was one of the strongest suitors. But as soon as she signed with the Indiana Fever, social media erupted, not because of the move itself, but because of Angel Reese's reaction. Reese posted a simple but loaded response. Wow. Just wow. That was it. No further explanation, no follow-up. But in the world of social media, those 3 words said everything. WNBA Twitter immediately ran with it, interpreting Reese's words as frustration, if not outright anger, over losing out on a key free agent. This wasn't just about one player picking another team. It fueled a larger narrative that Reese is struggling to bring talent to Chicago, while Clark is effortlessly attracting top-tier players to Indiana. The contrast was impossible to ignore. Reese has always been vocal on social media, and that's part of what makes her such a polarizing figure. But this time, her reaction wasn't received as confidence or swagger. It was seen as frustration. The message was clear. Chicago wanted Turner badly, and losing her to their biggest rival was a tough blow.
But lads, this is not great news, for the Chicago Sky, who are a team that obviously, look, they're rebuilding. This is a team that is 100% rebuilding. The problem is they don't own their pick. So if the Chicago Sky run it back, they're probably not making the playoffs next year. Look, I think there's going to be an improvement from Angel Reese. I think there's going to be an improvement from Cardoso. But that team with no Kennedy Carter, it's going to be real tough to get any offensive power.
And here's where things get even more interesting. Turner reportedly took a pay cut to sign with the Fever. That means she could have made more money elsewhere, possibly even in Chicago. But instead, she chose to play alongside Caitlin Clark and Aaliyah Boston. That decision speaks volumes. But Turner's decision wasn't just a loss for Reese. It was a clear sign that Indiana Fever is building something far bigger than anyone expected.
Last 4 championships in the NBA, all of those have been won by teams that have great chemistry, that have stuck together over the years. You have Boston last year, you have Denver, you have the Milwaukee Bucks, you have the Warriors who stuck together in a year that in 2021 that they thought that they wouldn't win again. So that's a testament to chemistry, cohesion, how players get along. That stuff is very important, and it's sometimes more important than just on paper the skill that you have on the court. So I'm so glad that the Fever front office is thinking about all of these things. And like she said, they're hand selecting these players.
Brianna Turner's decision wasn't just a one-off move. It was part of something much bigger, a complete transformation of the Indiana Fever into a WNBA super team. Just 1 year ago, the Fever were struggling to stay competitive. Now they've assembled one of the most stacked rosters in the league, and players are willingly taking pay cuts just to be part of it.
What the Fever organization is doing is nothing less than phenomenal, in my opinion. They are taking this young, talented core that they have, with Aaliyah Boston and Caitlin Clark, and they're adding veteran players that Stephanie White has already worked with. Let's talk about that too, and has chemistry with and knows the work ethic of. And they are building this super team, make no mistake about it, that is going to give you.
This kind of shift doesn't happen overnight. It takes star power, a winning vision, and the right leadership. And right now, Indiana has all 3. Their off-season moves were nothing short of a masterclass in team building. Brianna Turner, DeWanna Bonner, Natasha Howard, Sophie Cunningham, Sydney Colson. These aren't just solid additions. They're game changers. Turner brings elite defense alongside Aaliyah Boston, forming a front court that can shut down anyone in the league. Bonner is a proven veteran scorer who knows how to win big games. Howard adds more toughness and versatility to the lineup. Cunningham is a fearless competitor who can shoot and bring the energy every night. Colson is a locker room leader and fan favorite who fits perfectly into Indiana's rising culture. But here's the most shocking part. Turner chose this over bigger offers. That means Indiana isn't just attracting talent, they're becoming a destination. Players want to be there, and it all comes down to one thing, Caitlin Clark. The moment Clark was drafted, everything changed. She's not just a rookie, she's a magnet for talent. And her presence, combined with Aaliyah Boston's dominance, has completely fast-tracked Indiana's rebuild. And now people aren't just talking about Indiana as a playoff team. They're already being called a championship contender. The Fever aren't just stacking talent, they're building the next dynasty. But while the Indiana Fever are stacking talent and building a potential dynasty, the Chicago Sky are heading in the opposite direction.
is officially underway, Annie. So when you see these names and the options that the Sky have, what do you think that they're cooking up?
Yeah, it's interesting, right? Because Angel and Camilla are very interesting pieces. And when you're talking about, you know, getting the right players in here, there is intrigue when you have young core pieces like that, because you could be part of developing them and developing towards a title contending season. But the reality is the Sky are still very far from that. And so this year, the focus really has to be on getting players in who are going to bridge that gap between this season and next.
Free agency was supposed to be the moment where Chicago took a big step forward, giving Angel Reese the help she needed. Instead, it turned into an absolute disaster. The Sky didn't just fail to attract big names, they actively lost key pieces. Marina Mabrey was moved mid-season. Kennedy Carter wasn't re-signed. Diamond DeShields left for Connecticut. And now they've completely struck out in free agency. But here's the most embarrassing part. Angel Reese promised she was building a winning culture in Chicago. She wanted to be a leader, someone who could attract talent and turn the Sky into contenders. Instead, players are running in the opposite direction. Brianna Turner was just the latest in a long list of stars choosing not to play with Reese, and this isn't just a coincidence. While Indiana Fever is viewed as a rising powerhouse, the Sky are being mocked as a team stuck in no man's land. Social media is calling them a junior varsity team compared to Indiana's Avengers-style roster. Some are even questioning if Reese's personality is turning players away. And it gets even worse. Chicago doesn't even have a first-round draft pick this year because they traded it away. That means no young stars coming to save them. So now the Sky are left with a struggling roster, no top draft pick, and a franchise player in Angel Reese, who is watching her influence fade in real time. Meanwhile, Caitlin Clark isn't just attracting talent, she's becoming the centerpiece of the entire WNBA. And if there was any doubt about that before, this offseason just erased it completely. The Indiana Fever built their entire roster around her. Brianna Turner, DeWanna Bonner, Natasha Howard, Sophie Cunningham.
The Fever did not come to play. They are on a mission to win now, like 2025 championship season incoming. They were so quiet during free agency. And in the past 24 hours, boom, boom, boom. Re-signed Kelsey Mitchell to a max deal. Picked up Natasha Howard, bringing her back to the Indiana Fever, where she was originally drafted. And then they just announced a three-way trade, sending Alyssa Smith to Dallas and Sophie Cunningham coming to the Fever. This team in 24 hours just got exponentially better.
Every move the team made was designed to create the perfect environment for Clark to shine. And that's not an exaggeration. Fever coach Stephanie White and general manager Amber Cox had one clear goal: give Caitlin Clark everything she needs to succeed immediately.
Party pieces that Stephanie White and Amber Cox is going after. They're going after ready elite talent, kind of, you know, they know their responsibility. They know what they need to do. You know what I'm saying? They don't really have to do a whole lot of coaching like that, teaching plug and play pieces and women that are going to come in and make immediate impact. That's what you want to see from this basketball team. That's what you see from elite teams across the league.
Turner and Howard give her a defensive wall so she doesn't have to carry as much on that end. Bonner provides veteran scoring, so Clark isn't forced to take bad shots. Cunningham adds toughness and outside shooting, giving Clark more space to operate. But here's where things get wild. People thought Clark needed time to develop, that she would struggle adjusting to the WNBA's pace. That couldn't be further from the truth. Clark already has the rock, the keys, and the green light. The Fever aren't treating her like a rookie. They're treating her like the face of the franchise.
Throughout the year, WNBA players were demanding to be given credit for elevating the league. Angel Reese claimed that she, along with their pretend friends in the mainstream media, they wanted us to believe that the WNBA was exploding in popularity. They wanted to keep all the credit for themselves while downplaying the impact of the only star in the league, Caitlin Clark.
And they're not stopping at just building a winning team. They're making sure Clark's brand is just as dominant as her game. From national TV games to exclusive interviews, the WNBA is pushing Clark into superstardom. And why wouldn't they? She's the biggest name in women's basketball, the player bringing in new fans, breaking viewership records, and selling out arenas. But there's another layer to this. The WNBA needs Clark to succeed because for the first time in years, there's a real power shift happening in the league. But with the Fever's rise, another storyline is unfolding. The fall of the WNBA's most dominant team, the Las Vegas Aces.
The Las Vegas Aces are on the brink of being eliminated from the WNBA playoffs, and recently they have been in the news for all the wrong reasons.
For the past few seasons, the Las Vegas Aces have been the standard of excellence in the WNBA. Back-to-back championships, superstar talent, and a winning culture that seemed unstoppable. But dynasties don't last forever. And right now, the Aces are crumbling at the worst possible time.
I mean, obviously, we have to get better. We have to really take a sharp look at ourselves, look ourselves in the mirror, see our shortcomings, and then, you got to make the moves necessary, whatever that means, to put the best product that we possibly can. It's not going to be the same group probably next year. It just won't.
They didn't just lose key players. They lost foundational pieces that made their championship runs possible. Chelsea Gray is dealing with injuries, and there's no guarantee she'll return at full strength. Kelsey Plum was traded to the Los Angeles Sparks, breaking up one of the most lethal backcourts in the league. Sydney Colson left for Indiana, adding another piece to the Fever's growing powerhouse. Suddenly, Las Vegas isn't the same dominant force anymore. And the worst part? Free agents aren't rushing to join them. That's a massive red flag. It used to be that if a player wanted to win a championship, they signed with the Aces. Now, they're looking at Indiana instead. Even Aja Wilson, the heart and soul of the Aces, has to be watching this unfold with concern. Because for the first time, she's not the most talked about star in the WNBA. Caitlin Clark has completely shifted the conversation, and the Fever are stacking so much talent that people are already calling them the new favorites. And if the Aces can't keep up, they'll go down as the shortest dynasty in WNBA history. That's the reality of sports. Dominance never lasts forever. And right now, the WNBA isn't just witnessing a power shift, it's watching the rise of a new empire. This isn't just a regular WNBA offseason. It's a seismic shift that's reshaping the league. Angel Reese is losing influence while the Chicago Sky struggle to attract talent. Indiana Fever have gone from underdogs to super team status in record time. Caitlin Clark is the clear face of the WNBA's future, with a team built entirely around her. The Las Vegas Aces dynasty is fading fast, and free agents are choosing Indiana instead. The rivalry between Clark and Reese is still fueling debate, but for now, one thing is certain. Clark is winning both on and off the court. And with Indiana building a potential dynasty, the rest of the WNBA better be ready.
Wow, wow, wow. The Indiana Fever have traded Melissa Smith and got Sophie Cunningham in a three-way trade. And boy, do I want to talk about it.
Sophie Cunningham just did something no one else in the WNBA has dared to do. She publicly defended Caitlin Clark. While many players have taken shots at Clark, Cunningham is standing by her side, calling out the jealousy and criticism Clark has faced. But that's not all. The Indiana Fever made a bold move by trading away players like Melissa Smith, a decision many believe was necessary to fix the team's chemistry and fully embrace Clark as their franchise player. With new veteran additions, a revamped culture, and a rising superstar at the center of it all, the Fever are suddenly a serious contender. And the biggest question now, will this transformation finally silence Clark's doubters and prove she belongs? Stick around, because we're breaking it all down right now. While many WNBA players have voiced frustration over the attention Clark receives, Sophie Cunningham has gone in the opposite direction. She's not just supporting Clark, she's defending her against critics, making it clear that much of the negativity surrounding Clark is rooted in jealousy.
Why does everybody hate Caitlin Clark? And do you hate Caitlin Clark? Come on, talk to me.
Absolutely not. I think that she's a gem. I didn't know her, but All-Star Weekend, we kind of bantered back and forth a little bit. And she's lovely. She has a lot of pressure on her shoulders. And I think a lot of people always have a lot to say with people they don't even know or shoes they've never been in. And for me, I think she's handling the pressure very well. She's doing a lot of great things for women's basketball. And I'm a fan. Like, I would love to play with her one day, for real.
Cunningham's stance has instantly made her a fan favorite. While other players in the league throw shade, Cunningham has chosen to rally behind Clark, positioning herself as Clark's enforcer both on and off the court. This stark contrast between Cunningham and other WNBA players has only fueled the growing divide between Clark's supporters and her critics. But Cunningham's backing isn't just about words, it's about action.
Especially Caitlin Clark, and I'm a huge fan, and I never say that, but I think it's fun what she's doing. When it comes to viewership, man, I think a lot of people have a lot to learn about our league, but I think that's a really fun thing. And if you have really anything negative to say about all the viewership and everything that this rookie class is doing, I just think that you're not capitalizing on it and you might be a little jealous. So for me, I'm all for it. I'm about it.
She's joining a fever squad that desperately needed toughness and leadership. And she's making it known that if anyone wants to take cheap shots at Clark, they'll have to deal with her first. The Fever didn't just make moves to strengthen their roster. They made moves to fix their culture. And that meant cutting ties with players who weren't fully on board with the new direction.
She goes to the Wings, gets a fresh start. Hopefully that works out for her. Arike Ogunbowale has already welcomed Nalissa Smith there. So that's part of this trade also. So you get these, a lot of moving parts here. Because that's something a lot of people had anticipated and thought that the Fever were going to move on from Smith. And when Howard came in, it felt like, okay, Howard is taking her spot. And now Smith is no longer there to have a spot in the starting lineup or off the bench.
Nalissa Smith's departure wasn't just a trade, it was a message. Throughout Clark's rookie season, Smith's interactions with her were noticeably strained. Whether it was a lack of enthusiasm or outright resistance to Clark's leadership, something wasn't working, and the Fever knew they had to act. Trading Smith to the Dallas Wings wasn't just about acquiring Jaylen Brown and a draft pick. It was about ensuring that Clark had a locker room that fully embraced her. The same goes for Dejanai Carrington, whose involvement in past tensions further signaled a divide that Indiana no longer wanted.
Ow! Oh, I'm sorry. You poked me in the eye. You did?
I did not poke you.
Did you do it on purpose?
I did not poke you in the eye.
Did you do it on purpose?
I got him in the knee. That was my reflex.
It looked like...
And let's be honest, this move felt like karma. Smith and Carrington resisted the Clark wave, and now they're on a team that has no choice but to compete against her. Meanwhile, Indiana is building a winning culture that no longer tolerates distractions.
Why Indiana Fever fans don't want her on their team. And it's really not that hard to understand, Nalissa. Let me tell you why. We don't even need to take into account any of your social media outbursts. We don't need to take into account any of your subtweets. We don't need to take into account any of your drama chasing antics off the court. We don't need to take into account your passive aggressive ways. You're moving the Indiana Fever one day in your bio, adding them in the next day in your bio, tweeting other people's tweets. We don't even need to take into account all the unnecessary drama and garbage that you add to this team when it comes off the court. All we really need to do is sit back and watch you on the court. It's really not that hard of a concept to grasp.
The Fever didn't just remove players, they added stars. The acquisitions of Sophie Cunningham, Dewana Bonner and Natasha Howard are statements of intent. These aren't just solid players, they're proven winners. And with the re-signing of Kelsey Mitchell, the Fever have secured a core that is ready to compete. Clark is no longer just a talented rookie on a rebuilding team. She's the centerpiece of a rising WNBA powerhouse. What was once a struggling franchise has now turned into a legitimate playoff threat.
Amazing for women's sports in general. You have so many people, so many new and fresh eyes on our sport that maybe they're a little uneducated and maybe they kind of stir the pot a little bit. And so I get that, but for that class to come in, you have her.
Rebecca Lobo and other ESPN analysts have already pointed out how much stronger the Fever's roster looks compared to last season.
I think they're one piece away. I think they're one piece away from being a title contender. I think adding Natasha Howard puts them potentially in the top 4. Now, if they could sign, say, Nneka Ogwumike or Satu Sabali or even Dewana Bonner, I would put them in the championship conversation. But they haven't done that. But they have certainly improved by signing Howard. She, to me, fits their system beautifully as a rim-running stretch 4. We know Caitlin Clark is the best get-ahead passer in the WNBA right now. Howard will run the floor. Howard is outstanding in the pick and roll. We saw how good she was doing that when she was in Seattle. What else does she bring? A massive amount of experience. Remember, all the conversation for Indiana going into the playoffs last year, first time they've made it since 2016, was how little playoff experience they had. You see now they have 33 games. In that first playoff game against the Connecticut Sun this past season, they had 0 playoff experience from their starting 5. Howard brings playoff experience. She's won 3 championships with both Minnesota and Seattle. So to me, she's a huge, huge piece for them. But in terms of a championship, I think they're still one piece away.
Okay.
The message is clear. Indiana is no longer just about development. They're about winning.
Breaking news came down, so we have to discuss it. This is what we do here. We're talking about the Indiana Fever making yet another move, Alicia, because they're Thanos right now and they're collecting all the Infinity Stones.
And Clark, surrounded by veterans who believe in her, is in the best position possible to lead them to success.
So Alexa Filippo, hopefully I'm pronouncing her name properly, she is the one who's been breaking all this news. She tweeted 6-time All-Star and WNBA champ Dewana Bonner is signing with the Indiana Fever by re-signing Kelsey Mitchell, trading for Sophie Cunningham, and signing experienced vets Bonner and Natasha Howard. The Fever have catapulted into the title conversation.
Caitlin Clark isn't just a great player, she's a phenomenon. Her arrival has changed the WNBA in ways that go beyond the court. Attendance is up. TV ratings are through the roof. Merchandise sales have hit record highs. And all of it is directly tied to Clark's presence in the league. Reports indicate that Clark alone is responsible for 25% of all WNBA revenue this season. That's not just impact, that's dominance. And the reality is, her influence extends far beyond basketball. Sponsorship deals are pouring in. Companies that never invested in the WNBA before are suddenly showing interest. Even major networks are bidding aggressively for broadcasting rights to her games. Yet, with all this success comes resentment. Some WNBA players believe Clark's fame is undeserved, that she hasn't proven herself yet. But the numbers don't lie. Clark is single-handedly elevating the league in ways no player before her has, and Cunningham understands that. Instead of fighting Clark's impact, she's embracing it. She sees the bigger picture. The WNBA is finally getting the spotlight it deserves, and Clark is the reason why. The Fever didn't just bring in Cunningham for her skill, they brought her in for her attitude. Clark needed someone who could stand up for her, someone who wasn't afraid to push back against the physical play and the hostility she's faced in her rookie year. And that's exactly what Cunningham brings. She's tough, she's aggressive, and she's not here to let Clark be pushed around anymore. The viral All-Star moment where Cunningham jokingly told Clark to join Phoenix now has a new twist.
because instead of playing against her, Cunningham is now her fiercest ally. Fans are already hyped to see how this dynamic plays out.
And make no mistake, Cunningham and Clark are ready to fight back against the league's hostility. Together, they're setting the tone for a new era in Indiana basketball. Sophie Cunningham's decision to defend Clark has shifted the conversation in a way no one saw coming. Instead of allowing Clark to be an isolated target, Cunningham has turned the tables, exposing the jealousy and criticism for what it is. Meanwhile, the Fever's roster moves prove that Indiana isn't here to waste time. They've fully committed to Clark, surrounding her with the right players and cutting out the ones who didn't fit. Clark's shooting ability, impact on revenue, and influence on the league's future all prove one thing. She's not just another rookie, she's a game changer. And as much as some WNBA players might push back, the reality is undeniable. Caitlin Clark is here to stay. The season ahead will answer all of these questions, but one thing is certain, the Fever have made their choice. And with Clark and Cunningham leading the way, they're ready to shake up the WNBA like never before.